All right, 1 second here. All right, well, we're holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 17. Again, we're welcome everyone. Holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 17. It's been, whatever, a few weeks. So I'm glad everyone's had a break from me. So it's been a few weeks. We're holding by Chapter 17. We're in verse 6. So we spoke before that all about if you brought you slaughter an ox or a sheep or a goat, right, in the camp, you don't have slaughtered outside the camp. It's blood for that man. He spilled blood. It should be cut off from his people, right? If a Kohen killed the animal and slaughtered it in the wrong place, offered it in the wrong place, it'd be spiritually cut off, right? We spoke quite a bit about that. And we're holding now by verse 6. By verse 6, Torah says, Zar Kohen es Adam al Mizbach Hashem Pesach Moed Itir Achele Rev Nichoch LaHashem. So here the Torah says in verse 6 that the Kohen is going to throw the blood upon the altar at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and that again, these are specific things. Can't just do what he wants. Can't just, sacrifice where he wants. He could be liable for a death penalty. He could get spiritually cut off, right? Torah is very, very specific. Very, very specific where, sacrifices have to be other things. And so it says, he shall cause the fat to go up in smoke for a satisfying aroma to Hashem, right? In other words, he's going to bring sacrifice. He's going to throw the blood, right, on the altar, so to speak, the entrance tent the meeting, and the fat are going to go up in smoke, right? That's what he's going to do over here. We'll see further in a second, but very nice, very interesting. What does the Torah say? Torah says, it shall be a satisfying aroma for Hashem. Now, last time I checked, God does not have a big schnoz, doesn't have a big nose, right? So it's not like God's going, right? Imagine, God is omnipotent and he's everywhere. Like we're not anthropomorphizing over here saying, oh, look, God's got a nose. God's sniffing over here. We said at the beginning, way back, right? Let's see if I have a merit here to find it. Way back at the beginning of the book of Leviticus, when the Torah speaks about the sacrifices, right? The Torah does say, let's see if I find it here. Is there? Right, obviously when you need something, you probably won't find it here, but let's see. It should be here in the first chapter. Here it says, chapter 1, verse 13. It doesn't say it here, but it must say it somewhere else. All right, it doesn't say it there. It's the same language, but verse 9, chapter 1, verse 9. Right, chapter 1, book of Leviticus, chapter 9. The Torah says over here, the Torah says you wash the innards, wash the animal, the innards, feet with water. It's going to cause it to go up in smoke on the altar, on the mizbeach, an oil offering, a burnt offering, a fire offering, blazing fragrance to Hashem. This is again Book of Leviticus chapter 1, verse 9. Yeah. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? A pleasing offering. So Rashi there says, first thing is it's a source of contentment for me. I'm happy. I'm happy that you're doing this. Because it says, as I said, Rashi says, that God said the offering she brought and my will was done. Right? So essentially what happened, it's quoting from the Medrash, that what is the pleasing thing over here? The pleasing thing over here, Rashi here explains, is that he did what God said. The Kohen essentially did what God said. That the offering was brought and my will was done. The Rashi's not coming to tell you, now you have to understand what he's saying. He's not coming to tell you, oh, it's a pleasing fragrance to Hashem. What would I think? God's got a big nose. And God's going, right? God's got a big nose. So that fragrance is unbelievable. God's not a person. God doesn't have a form, right? We just read in the book of Genesis, the beginning of the book of Genesis, right? God created man in his image, spiritually. We can't explain God physically. Well, we really can't really say spiritual either, right? He's really neither. He's neither one or the other, right? It's kind of hard, very hard to describe exactly what God is. That's a different issue, right? But you can't say he's physical for sure. And sometimes the Torah will say an outstretched arm. Doesn't mean he has an arm, right? Referring to power, right? God's strength over here, right? But here, so we're not saying that. We're not saying, using anthropomorphism here. Because Rashi's saying from the Medrash that this offering was brought and my will was done. Right? What does my will being done mean over here? It means you did what God said, period. You did what God said. That's pleasing to him. Right? Here we're talking about a sacrifice. Right? So that's pleasing to him, not the sacrifice itself, per se. Meaning it's a physical thing. Definitely not a physical thing because God's not physical. So this pleasing fragrance, Rashi's coming to tell you that's why is God content over here? Why is he happy? Why is it pleasing to him? Because we did his will. Because the Kohen did what he said. So that's a huge thing. That's a huge thing. Coming to exclude the fact that what? God has a nose. Pleasing over here doesn't mean physical senses. Right? Not seeing, not hearing, smelling, right? Feeling, not the physical senses we have. Because God obviously is above all that, right? Not in human form, right? So to speak. But what's the point? The point is that anytime it says it was a pleasing fragrance to Hashem, the reality is, what does it mean? It means that we did God's will. That the offering the Kohen brought, he did God's will. Now, what could I deduce from this? What would be a very simple deduction? Very simple understanding. A very simple understanding would be that if you didn't do what you were supposed to do, if the Kohen doesn't do it over here, we just saw, you give it the wrong place, you spill blood. Your blood should be spilled. You did the wrong thing. You get spiritually cut off. The Torah says. That's if you do the wrong thing. If I do the right thing, then God's very happy. We did his will. You do the wrong thing, again, there's a very simple inference over here. You do the wrong thing, God's will is not done. Right? And you see what the ramifications can be. We mentioned this many times. Many times. What do I have at the beginning? The beginning of the book of Genesis. Adam and Eve eat from the tree. Now God makes a command. God says, whatever you do, don't eat from the tree. One commands. What happens? What happens? God says, you didn't do what I said. I gave you one command. Everyone passes the buck, right? Adam says, not my fault. Eve gave it to me. He said, not my fault. They gave it to me. Everyone's punished. God's like, all right, everyone out of the pool. Throws everyone out of the Garden of Eden. Why is he throwing them out of the Garden of Eden? Because God says it's going to be death. Death never should have been. Death is not a Jewish concept, but what happened? God had to go to plan B. God understand there was going to be a plan B because man could eat from the tree of knowledge. Now, what's the problem? Man could go and eat from the tree of life. Fame, going to live forever. No, can't live forever. Why can't he live forever? Because you won't get atonement. Because God says the punishment is you have to go back into the ground. You have to be buried, right? So that was not pleasing to God, obviously. Went against what God said. We see by Cain, his offering wasn't good according to God. So there are good things we can do that pleases God. There are things we can do that are bad, right? That do not please him. But what does it mean it doesn't please him? The end result could be catastrophic. It could be absolutely catastrophic. Why? Look what one event caused. One event in history brought death to the world, right? Absolutely brought death to the world. Now, God goes so far, the Gemara says, God goes so far and says that Adam is a heretic. Heretic? He was like the greatest of God's creation. Almost a pure angel in the human form. How would he call him a heretic? How in the world could he call him a heretic? Because what did Adam think? He said, if I eat from the tree, what's going to be inside of me now? The evil inclination. The evil inclination was outside of him. He understood things were good, things were bad. Right? If he walks into a pit, he could get hurt. He understood these things, but now it's inside of him. What's the difference? And the Ramchal, Derech Hashem, speaks this out more in the way of God. He speaks what the difference between the world, what the world looked like before Adam and Eve ate from the tree and after. Right? But the point is, Adam had made a decision. He had a calculation. What was the calculation? Calculation was like this. If I have the evil inclination inside of me, if I do the right thing in God's eyes, so not only do I uplift the body, right? I uplift the soul, right? In other words, I sanctify the body, I sanctify the soul. Very good. Exponentially. Because I don't go according to my evil inclination. What if I go according to my evil inclination? Right? A person goes according to their evil inclination. What happens? They debase the body, they debase the soul. In other words, the sin is that much more severe, right? The stakes are much higher, right? So Adam said, I had an idea. If the evil inclination's inside of me, I could grow exponentially spiritually. I could fight against my evil inclination. I could do good things against that. And I'll get unbelievable reward. So why does God call him a heretic? So God essentially says, the Gemara says, God says, wow, what a great idea. That's a great idea. I agree with you 100%. There's only one problem. What's the obvious problem? He didn't tell him to do it. He did not want man to eat from the tree. He didn't want man to eat from the tree. Okay. So God says, even if I would agree that what you did is okay, you had ulterior motives for good. I get it. But what's the problem? You did not what I wanted you to do. And the punishment for that was very severe. Unbelievably severe. What's the punishment? Death. Right? So it's also brought down that when a person dies, who's the first person they see? Adam Marishon, see the first man. And they say, because of you, I have to go through this. And he nods. And that's part of his atonement. Right? That's part of his atonement. Because, again, he brought death to the world. Totally brought death to the world. You tell me it's Eve's fault and she got, seduced by the snake and all that. Okay. But essentially, all mankind gets blamed. So he gets punished because now everything's not going to be handed to him on a platter. He's got to work. He's got to work to live. Right? He's got to work hard. He's got to work hard to make a living. And what's the punishment for a woman? Childbirth. Yeah, raising children. That's her punishment. What's punishment for the snake? snake gets his legs chopped off, you're going to say, why is that a punishment? He's always got food to eat, right? Hard to understand, but he's cursed. Everyone asks the question, what do you mean he's cursed? He's slithering around, he got plenty of food. You're not lacking food, never lacking food. So where's the curse? The commentaries say, the curse was, see, the snake never needs God, never needs to pray, never needs nothing. Why? He's got all his needs taken care of. That's the worst thing that ever happened to a person. Is that God gives you everything on a platter. I mean, I'm sure everyone would sign up for this. God gives you everything on a platter. What happens? What happens when he gives it to you on a platter? He gives it to you on a platter. It means he doesn't really want you. Doesn't want your prayers. Not interested in your prayers. He made life very easy for you. Now, Rabbi says many times we ourselves have to be careful. See, if we're being tossed around, we're having trials and tribulations, doesn't mean God hates us. It means God wants to bring out the best in us. He wants us to help reach our potential. True. Even though we pray every day, we don't want trials and tribulations. You don't grow without them. Right? Kind of catch-22. Right? You don't grow without them. At the same time, we say like this. We say like this, and he's squeezing us like toothpaste, like the bottom of the toothpaste. Okay, he wants to work on our amuna muscles. Right? He wants to work on our belief and faith in God. Very good. So if he wants to do that, then that means he cares. If he didn't care, he'd say, here's $1 million, scram. Like, I'll make your business go up like no tomorrow, right? I don't want your prayers, I don't want nothing. So you see in the Reform and Conservative movements, they got plenty of money. They're not lacking in money. They got plenty of money, right? Orthodox communities and schools and all that, you got to go raise money. It's like pushing dimes together, try and balance the budget and all that. What's the difference? Well, what's the major difference? We just said God's giving them everything now. He doesn't want to hear their prayers. You're not interested in their prayers. It's there. Here's $1 million. Do whatever you want with it. We'll give you all this money. Imagine United Jewish Congress and the UJA, United Jewish Appeal, probably, they raised, this is years ago already, like close to $500 million a year. Close to $500 million a year. Now, where does that money go? I'll tell you where some of it goes. Some of it goes to building more trees in Israel. How many trees do you need in Israel? People come, they plant a tree, name of this one, name of that one. Very good. You know what happens to those trees? Yeah, just burn them down. A lot of them. Where's the money go? I saw our statistics once years ago. 6% goes to education. 6%. So do the math, right? Let's say $500 million. So 10% is what? It's 50 million. So, it's like a little more than that. Very good. Yeah. But what education does that go to? Probably goes to bad education. I saw there was a group in San Francisco of all places, right? One of these Jewish groups there, a bunch of liberals, they have their minds open till the brains fall on the floor. They donated like, I don't know, $150,000 to gay groups in Israel. That's where it's going, right? Money's being wasted, totally wasted. Even if you tell me $50 million, $40 million, whatever it is, where's it going? Being wasted, right? So yeah, they raise a lot of money. I know God gives them a lot of money just to waste it, just to put in things that are irrelevant, right? Someone told me a story. Someone helped raise $100 million. Jewish person, a lot of money, got other people to help raise $100 million. Wasn't just their own money. $100 million for a non-Jewish charity. Imagine where that $100 million could have gone in the Jewish community. Jewish schools, girls' schools, yeshivas, helping, widows, converts, helping marry off the kids. You know what that money could have been used for? When this person died, that big funeral, more than 1,000 people there, being eulogized. Imagine. Now, I'm not going to say they don't get any credit for giving charity here. Probably get some level of credit. Kaufman would say he probably got a C- at best. Probably lower than that. but they help raise $100 million to a non-Jewish charity. So now they're being praised. Look at all the philanthropy, this and that. And their soul's probably going crazy because they understand what the absolute truth is. They're in that next world, so they know what truth is. And so now they're being flattered. They're like, no, just keep your mouth shut. You're killing me over and over. That's what a part of hell is. It's the embarrassment. It's the total embarrassment of what we've done in this world. Now they can't take it back. So you asked me the $1.5 million question, and that is, so why did God give someone that kind of power? That kind of influence. Why would God do it? Right? So the answer is, right? The answer is we don't necessarily know. Right? That's really the answer. Right? But essentially, essentially, he could be giving them so much money because they don't want, maybe they did a few mitzvahs in their life. So maybe he's giving them all that money for what purpose? Wipe them out in the next world. So they won't have a portion of the world to come. Could be. Right? Could very well be. But it does kind of boggle the mind. You think about it. These people have so much money, and so much influence in different ways. It'd be wasted. It's like giving a lot of money to save the whales. Yeah, you want to save the whales? Okay. You can do that. People involved in saving the environment, there's what to be said about it. Right? Someone asked me a number of questions about it. How much we should get involved. I don't know if it's that much we should get involved. I think there are a lot of other things. You got to say, but the ozone layer, this and that. Okay. Right? Are you going to convince people to stop using aerosol cans? Stick deodorant instead of spray? And spray for other things? Maybe. Right? Maybe. There's so many other things to be involved in. So many other positive things to be involved in. I'm not going to say the environment is all poo-poo the environment. No. I'm not going to say that, but if I were to think, let's say my top 10 causes, for the Jewish people today, right? This idea of the environment would probably be not, it'd be in the 50s or more. It's not a top priority. Not a top priority. Whatever it's going to be, God will take care of it. And if he wants the ozone to be destroyed and everyone's going to die of cancer, another 50 years, 100 years, okay, so be it. That's what he wants. We could have prevented it. Maybe. But the mantra always is God's in charge. So we can mess things up, but, this is very interesting. Just give an example. I mean, none of us messing things up, but, the earth goes on its axis, right? Goes around the sun. So we understand. Forget about people say the world is flat, right? We're still against that. But why doesn't the earth go a drop closer to the sun? Doesn't go out of its orbit, right? Doesn't go out of its gravitational force. Doesn't go out of it. Not only that, it doesn't go a little bit further back. If we go further back, we'd be frozen. Like Yukon territory, be frozen. Right? Or Pluto, even though Pluto got demoted as a planet. Yeah. How did that happen? Nothing short of miraculous. You'll tell me, come on, it's science. Right? It's science, it's gravitational pull, it's all these things. Yeah, okay. But why does it stay like that? Why doesn't it ever go out of its gravitational force? Why doesn't it move like that? So tell me this factor, that factor, the other factor. Right? But you're taking out the main factor, is God himself. You got to understand, he runs the world, he's in charge. So how much really should I be concerned about these other things? You see it by leftist groups. You see it by leftist Jewish groups. You don't see it by Orthodox Jews going to say, what, we don't care? We don't care about the environment? I mean, we do, but so what? God runs the world. Is it better I recycle? Yeah, definitely is. If you don't, it's against the law. I can't put plastic bottles in certain things or whatever. True. But that's very true. So, okay, we should do what we can do. But to make a whole big thing out of it and a whole movement and get totally carried away, I think that's a different issue. I think it's a very different issue. Right? But people think, oh, come on, what I do, what I say, really? Does it matter? Right? I'm an infinitesimally small speck of cosmic dust, right? I grew up in a town, a city, a state, a country, a continent, right? I'm getting smaller. a planet getting smaller. You're going to say, okay, I'm somewhere else, wherever I am in the world. What I do right now really matters. Comes on the Rambam, comes along Maimonides in the laws of repentance, and he says every state, every country, every city has a scale. So the scale is always going like this, always going up and down. Good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. Right? So if I do the right thing and I do a mitzvah, it helps the scale go on the side of good. If God forbid we do the wrong thing, the scale goes down. You can say, what about other people? Okay, I got to worry about myself. Can't necessarily worry about other people. But what happens? Let's say there are certain places out there that the scale goes way down on the side of evil. Now, what does God do? What essentially does God do? So God looks at the scale. You're going to say, well, doesn't God have infinite mercy? No, doesn't have infinite mercy. He has mercy. He's got a lot of mercy. But at a certain point, God says, okay, I can't stand this anymore. I got to do something, right? Got to make a tsunami. I got to make an earthquake. I got to, wake people up. I got to wake people up. So every place is judged. So if we see this Rambam, and we see what Maimonides says, guess what? Why don't we live our lives like that? Shouldn't we be careful everything we do, every second of every day? Should be careful. Should be careful what I see. Should be careful what I think. Yeah, I should be careful. You're going to say, but if you do that, then life is very heavy. And you're right. Life should be heavy. Life should be very heavy. Because you know what? Come Rosh Hashanah, right? What were we doing on Rosh Hashanah? We're praying for our lives. Biggest court case of our life. That's what we're praying for. Who by fire, who by water, who's going to get suffocated, who this, who that. Who's going to get eaten up? Who's going to get ripped to shreds? I mean, this stuff happens. We're living it right now in a more graphic way. But at the end of the day, what do we see? Judgment is real. How it works, when God decides to punish and this and that, it's up to him. But there are certain things that God despises. One of them is immorality, right? One of them is idolatry. There are many times the Torah speaks against idolatry, right? You say, what does God care? You see the Ten Commandments, don't bow down, don't make graven images. It says in a lot of other places. It speaks about immorality. Leviticus chapter 18, we'll get there. I don't know when. We'll work our way through. We'll get there. Leviticus chapter 18, anyone doesn't know, it's all about forbidden relationship. Right? I'll just throw this out there, just an interesting side point, and that is that those verses in chapter 18 are read on the holy day of Yom Kippur. Right? By the afternoon service of Yom Kippur. I could have thought of a lot of things that would be read. That could have been read on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the year, right? We don't eat, we don't drink. It's all about atonement. So I could think, okay, I could think of a lot of passages we could read. A lot of passages. So if that's true, if that in fact is true, then what do I have? Then I got to ask the question, what's going on over here? Why read about immorality? Why read about immorality on the holiest day of the year? What's the answer? Because even on the holiest day of the year, I got to be aware this is a terrible thing. I always got to be aware. Right? Even on the holiest day of the year. But what's the bottom line? The bottom line here is what I do matters. Right? What I do matters. You might say, if I spoke badly against someone else, God forbid, didn't hurt him. Didn't even affect him really that much. And everybody even knows it, let's say. All right, I'll make it easy. Let's say people don't know it. The person spoke badly against someone else. Okay. You'll say I would have said it in front of his face, and this and that. What is bad? It kills 3 people. It kills the person who said it, kills the person who said it against, and it kills the person who listened. right? Even if a person heard Lashon Hara, he can't believe it, 100%. If it's something I have to guard myself against, okay, but I can't believe it 100%. I'm not allowed to believe it 100%. So, in the introduction to the laws of Lashon Hara, Chofetz Chaim points out all the transgressions, all the verses transgressed. More than 30 prohibitions in one shot. In one shot. So a lot of the al-chetz that we say on Yom Kippur, when we say al-chetz shatanu lifanecha, we beat our chest. Most of the things about what we say, what comes out of our mouth. So my actions matter. My actions, what I say. My actions, what I think. Even though we normally say words of my heart don't mean anything, right? Devarim shebalev ein devarim. For certain things, it matters, right? Certain things that matter, but what I think is crucial. What I think is absolutely crucial, right? Which means that, we say in the Shema, we say in the third paragraph, right? Lo sasuru acharei levavchem v'acharei neichem. We shouldn't go astray after our hearts and after our eyes. Right? The eyes see, the heart covets. So you got to be careful what you see. You got to be careful. You got to be careful not to try and keep up with the Joneses. Just because people have things doesn't mean you should have them. Right? It's not a race over here. And there are people who live well beyond their means just for that. Well, let's keep in mind, what am I here for? Right? What do we say? What do we say? Go back to chapter 1. Right? Chapter 1, verse 9. Chapter 1, verse 9. What does it say? It's pleasing. What does it mean? It's pleasing that my will was done. Pleasing means I did what I was supposed to do. That's what it means. I did what I was supposed to do. That's a much harder thing. It's a much harder thing. Why? There's a lot more fun things to do. A lot more fun things to do. That we think. We get distracted. That's what the Ramchal says. Ramchal says in Derech Hashem exactly that. We get distracted. Right? We can't get distracted. We don't want to get distracted. But we do. Because we forget. We forget what our purpose is. We forget what we're doing here. And we forget, it's hard to imagine, right? We forget how we should act to others. Someone once told me they were going into a building in a school. Sorry, they're going into a school. They're about to walk in the door. Someone walked in front of them, didn't hold the door. So I said, how can someone not hold the door? So I said, maybe they're in a rush. Maybe they didn't think about it. Maybe they didn't see you. He said, no, they saw me. All right, knock that idea out. Right? So why'd they do it? I don't normally answer these questions. Right? Most people know. But why potentially did they do it? Maybe they did it because it's not something important to them. Totally not important. That's extra, right? That's extra. That's a bonus, right? That's a bonus, so to speak. That's beyond what I should do. What do you mean it's beyond? Why is that beyond? Is it obvious? If someone's coming behind you, you should leave the door open. That's what I would think. But for some people, for whatever reason, common sense has gone out the window. I mean, we see a lot of that today. Mine's just a terrible thing. Not even a terrible thing to waste. It's just a terrible thing. People don't think. And when it comes to hygiene, people don't think. How can someone talk to you and cough in your face or sneeze or whatever? One of my personal pet peeves, as most people know. How can people do it? Well, again, either it's not important to them or they've never been taught it. I don't have any other better answer. Right? Or they're just plain stupid. I could say that. But let's say they're above average intelligence and other, so where's common sense? Can't teach common sense per se. Right? I would think you could, but some things you can't. Okay. Right. But what's going on? People don't think they don't have common courtesy. They don't have common courtesy. Why not? Why shouldn't they have common courtesy? Right? The world's gone crazy. Yeah, I get it. But there are basic things people don't know. Or either they don't know. It's one of two possibilities. I don't have any other possibilities. It's either they don't know, or they were never, or it's not important to them. They were never taught, or it was never important to them. So I'll take the latter. How can that be important? You don't care. You got germs and someone else could get sick. Right? That doesn't matter to you. They have to take off time for work and that doesn't bother you. Like I said, I don't have a good answer. People don't care. People don't care. If people live in certain places where people double park, then you can't get by. Or it blocks up traffic. Oh no, I'm only going there for 1 second. What do you run the world? You can tell me, what do you mean? The Mishnah Sanhedrin. Mishnah Sanhedrin says, the world's created for me for no one else. Yeah, but you got to care about your fellow human, don't you? I'm also in a rush. Don't sit there and block up traffic. This is not rocket science. I'm not telling people things they don't know. Right? So why do people do it? No, I'm just there for a second. It's no big deal. But you're blocking up traffic. People can't get by. Well, I was in a rush, and no one else is in a rush. If you tell me it's a medical emergency, okay, I'll cut you some slack. And you really can't judge someone once you've been in their shoes, but this is negligence. Negligence is punishable if it could have been prevented. You don't get a pass because you were negligent, right? You caused damage. Right? The question is, does it look like I did it on purpose or not? Negligence seems to be, according to many rabbinic authorities, like you did on purpose. Maybe you forgot about something, this, that, okay. But if you did something and you weren't careful and it caused someone damage, you're liable. You 100% would be liable. So why don't people think, why don't we, So I'll give another example. There's a lot of questions here. I'm taking a second. The idea is like this. A person may think, right? A person may think what they're doing is justifiable. Very justifiable. Person speaks Lashon Hara against someone else. They deserve it. 100%. They deserve it. They have it coming. Of course they have it coming. Not only that, it's true. Right? But let's say that's the case. But let's say that's definitely the case. Right? That it's true. That gives me a right to repeat it whenever I want. Right? Right? What? Who says? Right? Who says I'm allowed to do it? Even if it's justified. Right? I gave an example last night or yesterday afternoon for most people about taking revenge. Right? Common courtesy would be you're waiting, someone's on the phones before cell phone. Yeah. They wait till you finish. This person, they've been on the phone too long. Hangs up the phone. What was so important for him to make a phone call? Calls up the owner of the pizza store. Hey, we're hungry. Open up the store. That was more important than like me speaking to my parents. So if I mentioned this person when I went back to learn, if he would have come and asked me for a pen, I would have said, what are you kidding? Look what you did over here. You're a menace. Look what you did over here. There's no excuse. I should give you my pen. Go find someone else's pen. That's a total prohibition, taking revenge or bearing a grudge. You're going to say, God expects you to be a malach? God expects you to be an angel? Torah is for everybody. Torah does not single out. This is only for the righteous. He's not saying that. He's not saying that at all. Right? Meaning the Torah says, you're not allowed to take revenge. So you're going to say, wow, this is a pretty high level. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't have that test. Let's just say, would have been a very hard test. Right? In the end of it, this person would have come and said, can I borrow your pen? I would have given it to him. I wouldn't have said anything. I wouldn't have grumbled. I would have given it to him. I might have said something. Let's say, not that righteous. Yeah, maybe I would have said something. Yeah. Today, I wouldn't even thought twice about it. I said, yeah, here. No problem. And that's it. Why? Because you got to see the bigger picture. Right? As we always say, you don't see the bigger picture, you're lost. Right? You're absolutely lost. So in this case, Learner points out, right, value's been lost. You're right. I'm talking basic value. I'm talking about people who've been indoctrinated, and people have an agenda. I'm not even going to go through all that. Spoken about that a lot. Right? That's a whole nother thing. A parent doesn't teach their kid to blow their nose and not wipe it with their hand. Even if they're a young adult, I'm not talking about a kid. Doesn't get a tissue, wipe. I'm not going to get gross. Where it goes. Someone told me this recently. A few months ago. I think it was a few months ago. I said, yeah, so whatever. So he just rubbed it all over. I'm like, you got to be kidding. You're a 14, 15-year-old kid. There's something wrong. Not a secular kid. Secular kid, I might understand, maybe. So how come basic values can't be taught? It's either parents don't teach them, right? Maybe, right? Like someone points out, grandmother taught me, lower my hand for the elderly, this and that. Okay. You know what? In that generation, it's very interesting. I have a relative, whatever, in their 90s, and person's still very, very, very sharp. Mind's very, very sharp. They're like different strokes for different folks. You think like this, someone else thinks like that. People do other things. Where do they go? You got to go with the flow. You got to keep on trucking. Imagine a 90-year-old person, you got to keep on trucking. Where'd that come from? From my generation. Or maybe a little bit before. Yeah. So they're taking what goes on in this world and applying it to their own values, even though it went against their values when they were growing up. Like in my parents' generations, things that would be done today never would have been heard of. Never. Not in a million years. What changed? You know what changed? Morality is relative. That's what changed. That's what moral relativism is. It just got worse and worse and worse. And today it's way out of control. Way out of control. People don't know if they're male or female, if they're binary, or who knows what. Can't make this stuff up. So everyone's got free choice. Everyone for sure is free choice. Right? But when the Torah here says it's a reach nichoach l'Hashem, it's a pleasing odor to God. What is the pleasing odor? The pleasing odor means my children did my will. They did what I told them to do. That's the greatest benefit. That's the greatest goodness God has from man, is that we do what he says. But there's evil. We do terrible things. We speak bad against others, all kinds of things. You're right. God doesn't like that. Right? Very simple inference. We said either I do what God says and everything's good. And if I don't do, what God says, then I'm doing something wrong. Doing something wrong. People said, well, how do you know what's right and wrong? Torah tells me what's right. How do you know the Torah is true? Oh, you want to have a discussion? I got a lot of proof the Torah is true. Nope, not interested. And who says the Bible's true? Yeah, so what do we have in truth? If God is absolute, the first of the 13 principles of faith. If God is absolute, what does that mean? It means it doesn't change. It means the Torah never changes. It means that at all times, murder is forbidden. Usually. Right? 99% of the time, it'll be forbidden. Anytime you're going to say it's not forbidden or it changes, that's a problem. That's a problem. I'm talking about murder, not self-defense. Right? Premeditated murder. So you tell me someone killed by accident. You have someone who can take revenge if he doesn't get to the city of refuge. Okay. That's not called murder. Right? Family member has that right. You know, if that person steps out of that place and that person's there, he could kill him. That's not murder. Right? That's a different issue. Totally different issue. I'm talking about premeditated murder. Premeditated murder should be forbidden everywhere at all times. Doesn't change. Oh, but what I got a problem today. Right? Got euthanasia. No, that's not premeditated murder. Right? What do we call that? Mercy. We call that mercy. It's not murder. Or a child cuts off their parent's pacemaker, right? Mother or father's pacemaker. Guess what? That's murder. They're ending their life. They're going to die anyway, right? That's what someone's going to say. They're going to die anyway. You're right. I had a case like this one. Someone's telling over the story. I was at a mourner's house. Yeah, we couldn't make this person suffer anymore. Cut off the pacemaker. Like, cut off the pacemaker. So I asked the doctor, I said, was the person going to die? Yes. They would have died in 6 to 8 hours. I said, how many hours did they die after they cut off the pacemaker? 2. You're not allowed to hasten a person's death. That's murder. Right? They're going to say it's mercy. That's murder. That's no different than taking a gun and shooting them in the head. No different. Or throwing them off a cliff. No difference. People's definitions change. Why? Because quote unquote society changes. Heard this growing up, when I learned by the conservative movement. What do they say? Times change. So what does that have to do with Torah? So we have a precedent. You're going to say, we don't use electricity on Shabbos. Very good. Whatever reason it's forbidden, but we don't use it. Do the rabbis have electricity? No. They don't have electricity. Right? So I can say it's forbidden. You're changing the Torah. So what's that? People will say if I flip a switch on Shabbos. I always love this example. Yeah, you flip a switch on Shabbos. Turn it on, turn it off. You're not doing anything. That's not called avoid. It's not called work. It's not one of the 39 categories. I said, you're right, you're not doing anything. I said, I got a great idea. I'm a little bit of a masochist sometimes. I said, okay, take off the plastic of the plug. They say, why? No, don't ask me why. Just do it. Okay, unscrew it. Very good. Right? Electricity's going. I mean, even turn it off, it's still there. Right? But the electricity's on, we'll make it very good. Right? We'll make it easy. Electricity's on. I said, okay, here's a screwdriver. Yeah, what do you want me to do with the screwdriver? I said, I want you to put it into the plug. What are you, an idiot? If I put it in the plug, I'm going to get zapped. Right? I might get electrocuted. I might die. Oh, but you're not doing anything. There's nothing going on there. Don't you understand electricity? There's an electric current there. Yeah, and? Yeah, there's an electric current, and? I turn it off. What am I doing? Oh, I'm not doing anything. Really? Okay. Take the screwdriver. No. I'm not going to do it. Why not? You're not doing anything. You're turning on and off the current. No, I turn on the current. I put that screwdriver and I'm good as dead. Depending on how much you get zapped. Exactly. Well, I didn't have this, but I had to scare my wife on Friday. I haven't been terrified of electricity just in general, but I'm a crock pot that I've been using for a long time. Anyway, it's been time to get a new crock pot for a while. Whatever, got a crack in it, whatever. So, whatever. I haven't got around to getting a new crock pot. Not too easy to find around here, but anyway, I go to make the cholent. So I turn on the crock pot. I all of a sudden popped all the electricity. So I told my wife, I said, all right, you can say Kaddish, Yiskadav, like morning prayer, that's the end of the crock pot. Crock pot went, right? It's on its last legs, and now it just died. That's it. Think, burst of electricity, this, that, the thing popped. That's not a small thing. All right, nothing happened to me. Nothing happened in the house. But like the main fuse went. That's how powerful it was. The main fuse went. Not to mention the fuse in the kitchen. Okay? Unplugged it, flicked the switch, and that was fine. Right? But, at the end of the day, you don't say it's nothing. So now the question is, what category does it come under? Or if I'm using the stove, electric, gas, doesn't really matter. Say, well, that, we'll use electric, it's easier, right? Is that really considered like kindling a fire? That's what the Torah says. You're not allowed to kindle a fire. Not allowed to kindle a fire on Shabbat. Very good. Is this the same thing as fire? Now, if I put my hand against the flame, right? Put my hand against the flame, I leave it there for a while, it'll burn. Nothing to talk about. If I turn on an electric stove, right? Doesn't matter. Electric stove, we'll make it easy. Leave it on for a little bit. Now put your hand, plaster it on the electric stove. You're going to say, of course I'm not going to do that. Why wouldn't I do that? Because your hand will get burnt. Now, my hand gets burnt when I use fire. And when I use, this electric stove, is it really doing the same thing? Not exactly the same, right? But it's essentially doing the same thing. If I gas, it's easier because it's like fire. Microwave would be an interesting case because it's not like fire, a different way. It heats up. It definitely heats up something. Speak about that in the laws of kashrus, the difference between an oven and a microwave. Heats up in a totally different way than an oven. More complicated in different ways than an oven. Right? But if you put something in there, put it in there for 5 minutes, let's say, then touch it straight away. Right? Touch it straight away. Wait, you're going to say, what are you kidding? Of course I'm never going to do that. I'm going to burn my hand. Okay, so that's also doing something. Even with these waves, these microwaves, okay. Is it the exact same thing as fire? Maybe tell me not exactly the same. Doesn't work the same way, maybe. But essentially, does it have the same elements? Meaning it does the same thing? Yeah. Burns. Makes it, or even better, makes it very hot. Makes it very hot. That's not adding to the Torah. Right? What do the rabbis want? The rabbis say that we don't want you to come to a worse prohibition. What's the worst prohibition? A Torah prohibition. So anything of the 39 categories that's forbidden, anything similar to it's also going to be forbidden on a rabbinic level. Why? Because you might forget a Shabbos, and then you might come to a Torah prohibition. Now, people will say, I hate what the rabbis say, I hate what they do. This is adding to the Torah. No. What is specifically adding to the Torah? Right? Because this question comes up a lot. Get it from Messianics, from Christians, whatever. They're adding to the Torah, they make up their own thing, this, that. Now, so let's analyze. Is that adding to the Torah? Or is that making a fence around it? Adding to the Torah would be if I add an extra compartment in my tefillin, in my phylacteries, adding extra tzitzis, extra strings for tzitzis. That would be adding to the Torah. That for sure would be adding to the Torah, right? Or I take one away, right? Or I take one away. Okay. But if I'm making a fence around the Torah, that's not adding. Right? That's not adding over here. So what's the whole point over here? The whole point is what I do matters. It cannot just affect me, it can affect others. It's another thing people have difficulty with. I'll just throw this out there. Get these questions soon. And that is that when Jews do the wrong thing, doesn't matter. Secular Jews that have more accountable for sure. Right? There's collective punishment. The Gemara says, all Jews are intertwined. We're all intertwined. So if a Jew does something wrong, even the secular Jew, all Jews get blamed. You don't see that by any other nation. You don't see all the Italian, someone did something in Italian in Brooklyn, right? Does something wrong and say, all right, that's it. No more cannolis. Not eating any more cannolis. Burn down Italy. Never happened. Never happened. You don't see that by any other group. I mean, we call that racist if you did, but we don't see that by any other group. Jews, whatever they do, that's bad, right? Let's say it's bad. It's collective punishment. Collective punishment. Nobody wants to go through it, but and God's ire can be sparked by any number of things. They're going to say, hey, people don't know what they're doing. How can they get punished? Depends what they do. There's more severe punishment, less severe punishment. A lot of things going on behind the scenes we don't see. We don't know. Right? So we really can't judge. This happened because of this. Maybe it happened because of that. Nobody knows. Nobody knows for sure. It looks really bad. Can I say the reason that the Holocaust happened because it was 80% intermarriage in Germany? Is that the reason? The Reform movement came out and said, one of the things they did is they took out going back to Israel in the Shemona Esrei, silent meditation. We'd rather be happy here in Berlin. Is that a reason why it happened there? Maybe. You say you're not going to go back to Zion because you don't want to offend people? You're going to take that out of the prayer book? It's been a prayer for thousands of years. You want to take that out of the prayer book? Now, if I were playing God, again, I put on my funny George Burns glasses, my funny mustache, and I would say, you know what I did for the Jewish people? I took them out of Egypt. I brought them into the land of Israel. Okay, in a roundabout way, they deserved it, whatever, right? I brought them in the land of Israel. I did all these miracles. And you got the chutzpah 2,000 years later to say we don't deserve the land of Israel? Even, Herzl or Schmerzel, whatever you want to call him, the founder, quote unquote, of Zionism, he would have been happy with Uganda, right? Or Argentina. Just so happened he got Israel, right? But, Israel wasn't necessarily on the agenda. It would have been good if we got it, but, it can't be greedy. Why should they give it to us? Even though it's, quote unquote, the national Jewish homeland, but why? Why is it the national homeland? You know why it's the national homeland? Because that's where God's presence is. That's where it still is, even though we don't see him. Right? I mean, here in Israel, you see things more, more revealed in a lot of ways. No, I wouldn't say open miracles. Right? Very hard to see open miracles today. But because we live in a world of Hester, but Hester Pony, this hiddenness within hiddenness. Regardless, there are a lot of things that go on that you can't explain. You cannot explain in this country. Right? One of them, the Satmar Rav, blessed memory, right, said the biggest miracle in Israel was not the 6-Day War. He said, no. He said, what was the biggest miracle in Israel? He said, the biggest miracle in Israel is how outdoor Orthodox Jews marry off their kids. That's a miracle. That's a miracle. They have a lot of kids, and, it's pretty amazing. It's always amazing. You go to a wedding, you see all these wedding halls, they're packed. Night after night, when it's permissible to get married, it's packed. Everyone, however people are doing, I married off 4 kids. Right? I married off 4 kids, each one their own miracle. Right? Can't be explained according to nature. It's not according to nature. You tell me in the States, not a place people make more money, okay. It's a little bit easier in different ways. Different ways, a little bit easier. Okay. Here people make less money. I have the same amount of kids or more. Even with everything going up, things offset, okay, but people are barely making ends meet. If they're barely making ends meet, how are they going to make a wedding? Throws everything off. If they put money away, good luck. If you put money away when you're younger, good. It doesn't always necessarily work out the way you think. But regardless, it's pretty open miracle. How do people do it? Like someone told me, I got a lot of daughters. You got to tell me how you did it. That each one's its own miracle. No question. Right? And I'm not even like grasping at straws. Everybody says it. Everybody says it. People find places to live, and, people survive and all that. It's a big miracle. That's the big joke. How do you make $1 million in Israel? I think I mentioned this last night also. You bring 2 million with you. That's, and prices of, apartments and houses here have gone through the roof the last 20 years, 30 years. You think, okay, the price is eventually going to go down. You live in the middle of a war zone, no pun intended. Yeah. Still going up. Supply and demand. Anyway, I don't want to, I don't want to digress here, but, what am I living for? I'm living to do what God wants me to do. Ramchal says in the introduction to Derech Hashem, he says, I think in passage just as well. He says, why did God create the world? What's the purpose? God doesn't need the world, doesn't need this world, doesn't need us, doesn't need anything, right? He's not lacking anything. So what's the purpose? Because the Ramchal says over there, God wants to give us his benefit from him. Enjoy his world. So by definition, get a little bit philosophical here. By definition, what do I have? By definition, God has no needs. He doesn't need me, doesn't need my mitzvahs, doesn't need anything, right? He's not lacking anything. If we say he's lacking, he's not God, right? That's first of the 13 principles of faith. God is absolute. He's not lacking anything. If I say he's lacking, he can't do something, or other forces that power over him, that means he's not God. He's not all powerful. God has to be all powerful. Now, that being the case, if he's not lacking anything, he's got no needs. So if he's got no needs, why did he create the world? He couldn't create now by definition, again, simple definition. He did not create the world for himself. Could not have created it for himself. So why did he create it? He's got no needs. Right? 100%, he's got no needs. He's got no needs. He must have created it for whom? Did he create it for the animals? Couldn't be created for the animals. How do I know? Animals are programmed DNA. They only have one aspect of the soul. What's that aspect of the soul? That aspect of the animalistic soul that we all have. No offense to any animal lovers out there. They die. That's it. Right? There is no portion of the world to come for them. Even if a person is reincarnated into a dog. Doesn't matter. The dog dies, the soul goes up. Soul goes up. Dog doesn't go up. Dog has no portion of the world to come. So at the end of the day, it cannot be for animals. Can't be for plants. Plants also programmed. Can't be for the ocean. It's also programmed. None of these things can act outside of their own nature. None of them. Because if we say they do, God has no power. So therefore, why did God create the world? Could not be for him, the Ramchal says. Cannot be for him because God has no needs. So if God is not lacking anything, who did he create the world for? Us, mankind. And there was a 2.5 year discussion. I have to imagine, day in and day out, for 2.5 years. The house of Hill, the house of Shammai were arguing. Was it a good thing to create man or not? Back and forth. Yes, no, this, that. Finally, they agreed. After 2.5 years, a better man wasn't created. But since man was created, we got to draw close to God. We got to look into our actions. But they agreed it was bad that we were created. Why? We messed things up in a major way. In a major way. So God had to create the world for somebody that's not going to be, it's not going to be a robot. So how did God not make us a robot? Everyone has free will, right? In general, without going into this big topic, right? But everyone essentially has free will. The idea is that what the Torah says, we just read, God breathed in the spirit of life to man. What does that mean? What does it mean he breathed in the spirit of life? So that's the Aramaic translation, Uncle says, Ruach Mamalo. What's the Ruach Mamalo mean? The spirit to speak, speaking spirit. What's a speaking spirit? Gives us the ability, doesn't mean just to speak. Animals also speak, right? I have a minion here. Saturday night, still from COVID. So, Saturday night, a bunch of people come out, parking lot to pray. And there's a tree. There's a tree, whatever, the nice sized tree right nearby. These birds were chirping like no tomorrow. I mean, I hear them usually at night also. Like, chirping like no tomorrow. Now, if I was Dr. Doodle and I could, talk to the animals, which I can't, there were people that understood the language of the bird, but they're like chirping up a storm. I'm trying to listen, like, they're all going to die. I got to hear that, or there going to be bombs or whatever. They're chirping up a storm. We don't know. And I have no idea what they're saying. Yeah. But they also speak. They also speak in their language. We just don't necessarily understand it. Now, they don't have the same ability we do to reason, to make decisions. A Ruach Mamalo, the ability to speak, means we have the ability to make decisions. You're going to say animals also make decisions. They can run, they can hide, they can eat, they cannot eat. Yeah. But what is the crux of an animal is their DNA. That's their crux. In other words, they are subjugated to the DNA. Nothing to talk about. Can they act outside of their DNA? Not usually. They're programmed. Right? In this week's parsha, Beis HaLevi, one of the Torah giants more than 300 years ago, right? His commentary on Chumash says mankind deserves to be wiped out. Why, why do animals deserve to be wiped out? They didn't do anything wrong. They're programmed, just what we said. They're totally programmed. Very good. Right? So they shouldn't be punished. So why are they punished? Because he says over there, the animals were intermingling species. I don't know, cat's going up to a chicken, dog's going up to a cow. I don't know, whatever it is. Whatever it is, they're intermingling species. That can't be. In general, that can't be. Why not? They don't have free will. You gonna tell me a cat's gonna go up to a cow in general? Never. Not a chance. Totally never a chance. How could they intermingle species? How is it possible for them to intermingle species? Because they saw the actions of man. They saw how perverse man was. See, things haven't changed so much. Right? You see how perverse man is, and they have influence on animals. They have power to influence animals. But that pretty much stopped. Man doesn't have that kind of power thing. But I did read an article years ago. Right? There was an article years ago that there was a certain breed of pelicans. I think they were pelicans. Pelicans that the males were trying to mate. Right? We'll keep this clean. Yeah, the males were trying to mate. So you're going to say, but that shouldn't happen. Right? According to nature, it should never happen. Man doesn't have that kind of power today in general. That used to be. Like the Beis Halevi says. Okay, so what happened? How could this be? Where did this take place? Anyone want to take any guesses? I'll tell you, San Francisco. Coincidence? Probably not. I could have thought of other places, but San Francisco, San Francisco is a good one. Provincetown, another one. Anyone from Boston knows. Right? P-Town, as they call it. Yeah, it's another one. But it was in San Francisco. Does man have that kind of power today? Hard to imagine, but that's what was reported. True or not, just an interesting tidbit. But we're influenced by the environment. Right? That's no question. That's no question. But the point is that animals in general should not be. They should not be. If they're programmed, they're programmed. They can't go outside what they're programmed. They have a certain DNA. Right? Plants have a certain DNA. Trees have a certain DNA. Now, there are other things going on. Let's say, you got spiritual forces. You got, angels taking care of the wind and taking care of rain. And, God's using them to do all kinds of things. Now, what if you have an angel bringing up God tells it, okay, I want you to stir up the winds and the rain. We're going to make a hurricane over here, or a hurricane, right? We're going to make a hurricane here. And you got angels, let's say, guarding the trees. You don't want the trees uprooted. But let's say the wind and the rain is going to be coming in at, let's say, 150 miles an hour, or at 180 km, 180 kilometers an hour or more. Right, much more than that. My math is off, but whatever, you figure out the ratio. So what happens here is confrontation. I got an angel guarding the trees. But I got this other angel stirring up things. So that angel's going to win, usually. Right? In other words, God wants that tree uprooted. That angel can't stop it. Right? So you got different forces going on at the same time that offset each other. Or one is stronger than the other. But why are they stronger than the other? How does it work? Right? It's all Kabbalah, but the Ramchal says this in Derech Hashem, in the way of God. What does the Ramchal over there say? The Ramchal over there says that God has a lot of messengers, sends angels to do certain things. And we know that angels only have one job. They God sends them, to do certain things. But they only do one. How do I know? What's the source? So I know by Abraham. When Abraham does circumcision, 3 people come visit him, right? 3 people dressed up as pretty much as Arabs, but they were angels, right? What were they doing there? One of them, Rashi says, was there to heal Abraham. One of them was to tell Sarah she's going to have a child, or tell Abraham he's going to have a child. And the third one, to overthrow Sodom. Right? So what do we see? They have different powers. Sorry, they have different messages. But each one has only one. They don't multitask. Once that angel has done whatever it's supposed to be, says the Ramchal over there, whatever he's supposed to do, he does. And then he goes back, gets the next message. God tells him, okay, now do this. Now go over here, right? But he doesn't do more than one thing, right? So that's what the Ramchal says, right? He doesn't do more than one thing, but spiritual forces have powers. They absolutely have powers. And God forbid, a person could tap into those powers. That's not very hard if you know what you're doing, right? You don't have to, you don't have to be on a high spiritual level. You could tap into this. Is that really what God wants? No, it's forbidden. It's even forbidden for non-Jews. Use Ouija boards and these other things. They have power if you know what you're doing. And knowing what you're doing, you're going to be very sophisticated. You totally don't have to be very sophisticated at all. Why not? Because at the end of the day, all you have to know is how to say a few incantations, a few things, and that's it. But you're playing with fire, right? Literally, you're playing with fire without, getting into all that. So we have to be careful here. We have to be careful, but, that's why I recommend people reading this book, The Way of God, Derech Hashem. It's a game changer. It's a game changer because it explains how the world works, how the universe works, purpose of man, evil inclination, man before and after the sin, eating from the tree of knowledge, right? Reincarnation, right? These are all, real things. Purpose of the nations. Opens your mind, totally different things. Spiritual forces, right? And how they work. Now, again, a lot of it very much steeped in Kabbalah, true. Very, very true. But I would tell people, you want to go through the book, read it first. Just read it once all the way through and then go back and sit on it a little bit. Right. And go through it a little more methodically, just to get ideas. Of what's going on in the world. Yeah, it's a game changer. Yeah, I want to take questions now. There are a number of questions here. Someone asks, first of all, what is the purpose of incense? Now, the Ketores, as it was known, was a pretty important thing, right? It was a pretty important thing in the tabernacle, in the Mishkan, in the temple as well. Had a lot of herbs and spices and balms and all kinds of things, right? Very, very precise ingredients. And they were commanded by God, right, to Moses. Now it was burned twice a day. It was born on a golden or inner altar, distinct from the outer altar, right, as well. Highlight of Yom Kippur was that also, that the high priest goes in the Holy of Holies, right, with these smoldering coals, got a pan like a smoldering coal, so to speak, and the ladle filled with this ketoris, this incense, so to speak. So whatever, I don't want to detail exactly what went in it. What went in it. Gemara brings down that incense bring blessing of wealth. The one offered on the temple, right? But it decided as many different priests as possible should get it, right? Should be able to, to be able to use it. Now, question on the floor is, okay, so what's the purpose, right? What was it there for? Well, it says the Rambam, says Maimonides, a lot of animals offered in the Holy Temple. Now, let's just think practically. You get a lot of animals there. The place is going to stink to high heaven, right? No pun intended. Would have smelled like what? Slaughterhouse, right? So, if you didn't do anything to counteract it, that's what it would have smelled like. So therefore, there was command to burn incense, twice a day, morning and at night. So those who officiated there wouldn't stink, right? Anyone's ever been to a slaughterhouse, place stinks, right? That makes sense. Also, it boosted the dignity and respect of the temple as well. Also, people would have lost respect, because imagine that, that people themselves will not feel so elevated in the presence of a bad odor, right? Of a bad stench, as we would call it, right? So therefore, you want to avoid a bad smell. Now, further they're going to say, come on, that's not really the main reason, right? Because the Torah says there's tremendous punishment for even trying to replicate these specifications, right? So therefore, it must be something Must be something else. So according to Kabbalah, I'm drawing Kabbalah just a little bit. Animal offering to the temple, what do they represent? That a person is really offering what? His own soul, his own animalistic soul. That's one aspect of the soul every human has. So here we're talking about subjugation of person's instincts, right? Their natural instincts to do what? To do what God tells us, as we said before. Right? That's the pleasant aroma, the pleasant smell. That pleasant smell means to do God's will. So the animal soul itself got a lot of positive traits that we can get to, positive things, but it could be negative as well, right? Again, it's animalistic soul, right? Go after things you shouldn't. So if you bring your animal soul, let's say, to the temple of God, you offer the finest parts of it upon the altar, still a bad smell, right? It's still got a foul odor. Why? Because what does the person bring to the table? Selfishness, right? Materialism, so to speak. So the burning of the ketores, burning of the incense, has that ability to subside it, right? To really sublimate it. That's the word. Sublimate it to get rid of this bad odor. But it could be as well that he want to tell me that it was brought there for the case of a bad spiritual odor, right? Let's say. Then why would it be brought into the Holy of Holies? In other words, if there's a bad spiritual odor, the question is, why is it there? Why would you bring it in a place of pure holiness? So what's the word for offering, right? For sacrifice is korban, right? Is that means to draw close, right? It means to offer, it means to draw close, right? The word incense, the word is in Hebrew is ketoret or ketoiris, right? What is the Aramaic word? Keter. What does keter mean? Keter means a bond. So therefore, what are you doing? If you brought close to God, being close doesn't necessarily mean you bonded, right? But you want to draw close to God. But here we're talking about you have a connection. You're drawing this connection. So when you brought an offering in the temple, what are you doing? You're uplifting the mundane and the physical and making it spiritual. So therefore, you're taking a physical animal or a meal offering on the altar, right? So it's for the person himself to connect, right? To connect to God. Right? So in other words, you're taking physical things, sanctifying them, right? Through speech and action, through what I say, through what I do, right? So that's a huge, that's a huge thing. It's one explanation that the Lubavitcher Rebbe explains. Yeah, so that is what that is. Someone asks, okay, if everything goes too smoothly, nothing bothers us, you'll be worried even if you try and do Hashem's will. Well, I can promise you, if you try to do Hashem's will, it's not going to be so easy. But if it would be, yeah, I'd be worried. I'd be worried if things were going too smooth. Things are going too smooth. Yeah, it's not a question. It's not a question of finding the Yitzhar per se, but if things are going too smooth, that could be that we're lacking something very severe over here. In other words, things should not go smooth. I mean, we're not here just to be a punching bag and get knocked around. I mean, we want some things to go smooth, right? We should have some things that go smooth, hopefully. But in general, that, if everything would be easy, then we would call it into question. Then we would call it into question, because if everything's going easy, it could be, person may think that God gave them this world, right? In other words, you're not going to have a portion, right? You're not going to, God forbid, you wouldn't have a portion in the world to come, right? So that is something to be concerned about. But I think most people, it's not going to be an issue, right? I think most people are going to have trials and tribulations because they're going to have trials and tribulations, right? Not something it's part of life. If things in theory are going so easy, then, if everything you do, is like gold and everyone loves you and you're making plenty of money and all things being equal, that'd be, you say, wow, God's blessing you over here. Yeah, but it could be for a price. Could be at a price he's doing that. meaning a person can pay a severe price. I'm not saying we should suffer just to suffer. I'm not saying that, right? We should have good things go on in life, but at the same time, if everything would be going good, yeah, that would be a question. Someone asked, one second. Someone asked, was humans with animals in Noah's day? Yeah, it was. It was humans, interacting with animals. At the same time, animals were also intermingling amongst, other species. Right? The fact that man, did what they did with them, they did what was done to them to others, but to different species. So it was both. Right? It wasn't just man with animals, it was animals with people with different species. Yeah, as well. Someone asked, any money to Hamas to rebuild? Yeah. Planned Parenthood. Yeah. I thought Muslims didn't believe in abortion. They probably don't. So, what are you going to get the money for? We're talking about giving them humanitarian aid. I don't think Israel can really stop that, but any of these things, any of these things, even if we would say whatever it is that it would be good for them, rebuild and this and that, the problem is they're the ones in control. The people are not in control, right? Israel's warning people to get out of there because they're going to go in, and they're not allowed to leave, right? Hamas is keeping them there, obviously, because they want to use them as human shield. So where's the money going to go? Where do you think the $6 billion that Biden idiot gave to Iran, where do you think it went to? Think it went to the people? It didn't go to their people. Went to Hamas, went to Hezbollah, went to other places. They just gave all this money for that. Not to mention the fact that I just saw something earlier, that they're very close to a nuclear weapon. I mean, they're like weeks away, supposedly. I don't know if it's propaganda. It's not propaganda, but I mean, if that's true, that's a pretty scary proposition. For the whole world, not just for Israel, for the whole world. Yeah, so, you can't take what they say, what other people are going to do. That's the way you're going to Planned Parenthood for Muslims. Good luck. They'll blow up the place first. When you're going to use money for that, I think they'd rather use it for other things. Then we call it, calling Hashem a liar, but the ozone layer renews creation every day. Yeah, there is what to be said again. Do it. It's global warming. I think it's a thing of the leftists. Even if it's, you're right. If God renews creation every day, we're not worried about it. Not something we're going to worry about in general, right? That would make sense. That would make sense because God take care of business. And even if that wouldn't be the case, even if it wouldn't be the case, couldn't God make it that there wouldn't be only ozone layer, or to be less, or whatever? Yeah, I do hear that seemingly would contradict that God is, renewing creation. Renewing creation doesn't mean he's rebuilding it every day. Renewing it means he keeps it going every day. Right? It doesn't mean he's just starting from scratch. If it's just starting from scratch, then I would say that's contradiction. That could be a contradiction. But if he's keeping it going and he is nature, and nature is, nature's part of God, he keeps everything running. God would sneeze for one split second, the world goes back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, goes back to that original chaos, back in that Led Zeppelin album. Anyone know what I'm talking about? Right? Original chaos, very good. I mean, not so good, we wouldn't be here, but in general, renewing creation can mean that just keeps it going, right? He keeps it the same. Now, could God allow an ozone layer to be there? Yeah. Could he make it bigger and cause other problems? Could. Wipe out a lot of people because of, ultraviolet rays and all. Yeah, it could. Cause other things to happen, sure. Not necessarily a contradiction, right? If you tell me starting creation from scratch every single day, it goes back to originally what it was, you don't have these problems, yeah, that I hear would be a problem. That I definitely hear would be a problem. But otherwise, if renewing it just means keeping it going, keeping it intact, then yeah, that wouldn't definitely be a contradiction. Yeah, let me see here. Someone asked, what's the difference between purity and cleanliness? Yeah, unclean, right? There's a word unclean when we talk about animals. We talk about unclean also, or let's say better, impure. Impure has a certain status. Yeah, what's that status? Impurity could mean a person touches something where now they have to go to a mikveh, or they have to go to a pure spring, whatever it is. And therefore what? Therefore, they're taken out of a state of quote unquote impurity, become pure. Now, unclean, right? The Torah says, that, right? Because someone here says, words unclean, right? Unclean is tummy, right? That's what it means. That's how we translate it, right? We don't say, there's a difference also. There's a difference also saying something's impure and saying something that is not clean, right? In other words, if a person says, this is impure, it's not the same as saying it's not clean, right? Forget what the English translation is, right? When the Torah says it's tummy, right? It's quote unquote unclean, and like an animal, you can't eat it. So what is the opposite of unclean? Clean, right? Well, how do we translate it? We say it's pure. What does purity mean? What does purity, in general mean? Right? Purity in the sense is, if you want to talk about, human, purity is a level where we're not enticed. We're not enticed to sin, right? I'll explain it by animals and other things in a second, but we say in the Shemona Esrei in Rosh Hashanah, right? We say in the silent meditation, whatever you want to call it, that there are different levels of someone who's upright, someone who's pure, right? I think that's the language. Is pure, right? Someone who's upright has tests. They have certain things that they're drawn to more than others, right? They have a stronger evil inclination. Someone who's pure doesn't even have that. Doesn't mean they don't have an evil inclination. But there are things that are not even an issue, doesn't even make them flinch. Someone who's grown up their whole lives an FFB, we'll call from birth. Yeah, someone who's an FFB from birth, what happens? What happens? Are they ever going to be tempted? Are they ever going to be tempted by shrimp? Right? Prawns, whatever you want to call them, depending where you're from in the world. Right? Tempted by that, or tempted by, I don't know, oysters, other things that are forbidden. Right? So what's the answer? These things probably taste very good. Well, what do you want? My Father in heaven says I can't eat it. Right? So for people who grew up, today you have all these things. You can say, it's not shrimp. So they take fish, kosher fish, make it taste like shrimp, right? Or, other things. It's not beef, it's not jerky, it's not this, right? So you don't miss it. So someone shouldn't miss it. You got bacon bits, right? Still have bacon bits, right? It's supposed to have the flavor of bacon, but it's all chemicals, probably kill you anyway. Right? Probably, totally unhealthy anyway. But, we won't go there. So somebody has been working on themselves and they've been keeping this for, since they were born. They're not tempted. Right? They're not tempted. And thought something's even on the radar. Now, they might be tempted by other things, maybe. Certain things they're not even tempted by. right? That's on a much higher level, much higher level. It's something that's not even on your radar. So that's a huge thing. But something you got to work, you got to work at. You had a temptation, you worked on, okay, that's a different level. In that sense, at the lower level. Now, I'll explain it like this. The Gemara says, a righteous person cannot stand in the same place as someone who is what we call about tshuva. Someone who's a returnee to Judaism. It means they sinned, they didn't grow up religious, right? They didn't grow up religious, and what happens? They didn't grow up religious, and they have different struggles that righteous people will never have, right? So the Gemara says, it's kind of hard to understand. The Gemara says a righteous person cannot stand where they stand. Why not? Because this person had a lot of trials and tribulations, difficult background and all that. So that the fact that they're keeping Torah mitzvahs are on a high level, right? So a righteous person can't stand there. What's the obvious question? Right? What's the obvious question? The obvious question is, someone who's extremely righteous, been right, and been religious their whole lives and growing, they're on a much higher level, right? The story between Yitzhak and Rivka, when they pray to find out what's going on in Rivka's stomach with their children, it says that Rashi brings down that Yitzhak's prayer was answered first. Why? Because he's a righteous person, the son of a righteous person. What about Rivka? Rivka's father, Besuel, was what? He was evil. He was a Russian. Right? As commentaries tell us. He's a big-time Russian. So if he's very evil, well, look who she became. Look how righteous she became despite her father. So why shouldn't her prayer be answered first? See, someone who grows up religious is going to cut them a little bit of slack here. Someone who grew up religious and stayed religious and grew into great people, they also have trials. They also slack off, other things, but they're used to it. They got, all their cousins are religious, aunts, uncles religious, grew up from a prestigious family. So you say it's a given. It's not necessarily a given. It's not an inheritance, right? It's not an inheritance per se. Got to grab their own Torah as well. Does genealogy, pedigree help? Sure. It definitely helps. Right? But at the same time, if they become righteous, even though they grew up from that type of family, then that's a huge thing. Why? Because they're not resting on their laurels. They can take it for granted. They can for sure take it for granted, no question. They could say, well, I'm just going to slack off because, I'm holding better than most people and I got all this family and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you could take it for granted. By Bali Tshuva, they can't take it for granted, right? Potential converts cannot take it for granted because they're reminded every day where they came from, who they are, totally reminded. So if that's true, it's always you're acquiring, that there's a joke, it's a sad joke. But, there's a joke. How do you know when a Baal Tshuva returning to Judaism, right? Didn't grow up religious. How do you know he's made it in Jewish society, right? How do you know he's made it in religious society? Because he speaks when the Torah is being read. It's a bad joke. In other words, he's like everybody else. But see, how could he ever be like anybody else? Or she be like everyone else? We have ups and downs all the time. Maybe sometimes more downs than ups. And, and life is hard. It's true. It's very, very true. But at the same time, Torah is more exciting for us in general. But if you've been religious 30 years, 40 years, kind of take it for granted. You can take it for granted. You're always reminded by non-religious relatives and they'll knock you down and say other things, okay. Right? But for a kid to grow up as a religious Jew, as an Orthodox Jew today, and they stayed on that path, they didn't really veer off and they became great people, that's a much greater challenge. Why? Because they grew up with it. If you had to fight for it, different issue. Fighting for it's a whole different thing. I mean, you can take it for granted after that also. But you're a Jew by choice. You took it on. You wanted it more than rubies and diamonds and gold and all that. Potential converts, same thing. They wanted it, so you can't take it for granted. But the problem is, you get caught up in Jewish society, you start going through the motions after a while. You're going to say, come on, prayer takes all the time. Okay, eventually, you get the lingo, you get the hang of things, you move to a Jewish community, it's a whole different thing. You could get lulled into sleep because you're doing what everyone else is doing. You're not an individual. You're part of a group. You dress the same way, all these different things. Right? But then you start doing things by rote, which we hold is like akin to spiritual death. So, sometimes God has to wake us up. Right? Sometimes we get wake-up calls, serious wake-up calls. Right? When you get serious wake-up calls, you're like, it's like you're in a dead sleep, someone woke you up, right? In the middle of the night, like, a person like gets all startled or whatever. That's what it is, what it should be. So based on that, what does that mean? It means I can never take what I do for granted. So now back to this. So a righteous person, they've worked on themselves for years and years and years and years. And they kept growing and growing and growing. Yeah, maybe they had setbacks here and there. Yeah. Or maybe they had serious setbacks even, let's say that. And they come back and they grow and they grow and they grow and they grow. Well, let's say they didn't have serious setbacks. Yeah. Go back to reading Parshas Bereshit, Genesis. Very good. Yeah, I already learned that. I already learned most of the commentaries. I already, it's not fresh, but you got to live it like it's fresh. Someone here pointed out, right? What do we say before saying the Shema in the morning? God is machadish b'chol yom tamid. God renews creation every day. We have to look at ourselves as a new creation every day. One of the reasons we wash our hands, because God puts in the morning when we wake up, because God put our soul in our body. Guess what? If God doesn't put your soul back in the body, you die. Right? You will die. So it's one of the reasons we would consider a new creation. Okay. Now, based on that, what would I say? So someone who's righteous has to always have that fire lit. They always have to want that fire to be lit, but you can be complacent. You can get complacent. See, someone who had a fight for Torah can never be complacent. I mean, in theory, they could be complacent also, but in general, they should never be complacent because they had a fight for Torah. They had to fight for what they wanted. They had to want it more than anything else. And the parents gave the problems, and friends gave the problems, and this one gave them problems. They had a fight. The fight's not easy. There are people who don't like confrontation. People think I love confrontation. I'm not interested in confrontation if I don't have to. I just get people who like to confront. What can I do? It's like a magnet. Like you're drawn to it. I'm interested in fighting with people. Had someone try to convince me. It's kind of funny. I'll mention someone. Actually, I got to bring this up because I want to I want to quote it right. 1 second. Let me just see. 1 second. Someone told me. I know what they meant. I had no idea what they meant. Asked them if they were interested in converting to Judaism. No, I'm only interested in Yahweh, right? Meaning, Hashem. Yeah. I believe, so the person said, I belong to no religion and believe in none but just in the Messiah. Now, that's a little bit problematic. I can just believe in the Messiah, right? Where does the Messiah come from? It comes from King David. Well, King David kept all the Torah and the mitzvahs, didn't he? Right? That was my question. He keeps all the Torah and the mitzvahs. So you can't say you don't belong to any religion, right? So the person said, "You're welcome to correct me." Okay, so add a little bit of connection, right? So they said, "I believe in." Now remember what they said before, right? I belong to no religion. I believe in none. I just believe in the Messiah. Now, what would that tell you? That would tell you they don't believe in Torah either. They don't believe in anything. They just believe in the coming of the Messiah. Right? It sounds a little bit strange. So I asked, but you just said, I said, I believe in the Torah because God gave instructions to write it. Okay. So I said, why don't you keep it? So they said, I do. The God, we want to say this one was a Jew, Right? It doesn't say practice Judaism or Catholicism. Show me in the Torah where it says, maybe I'm incorrect. Nowhere does it speak of religion. I was like, I have no idea like what you're referring to. And I said, the Messiah is going to come from King David. Obviously, he was a Jew and kept the Torah. Right? Now that's pretty simple. Does that mean only Jews go to heaven? I said no. Non-Jews have a portion of the world to come. Blah blah blah. Like I said, if you believe God gave the Torah, didn't give the Torah, and if he gave the Torah, why don't you keep what it says? Right? So if you're a non-Jew, you don't have to. You can convert. Right? 100%. You can convert, or you don't have, or you can stay in Noahide. Right? No one's saying anyone has to convert over here. Right? So the first thing that got back to me, and say, well, we agree on something. Right? You keep the laws without converting. I mean, to a point. Right? But that portion of the world will come as a non-Jew. Right? I have many friends who are non-Jews but reading practical laws of the Torah. I didn't even go into that. Right? So, what level? Right? But that's insanity. You believe in the Messiah, you don't believe in religion. That's contradiction in terms. Right? You either believe God, God gave the Torah, he didn't give the Torah. Right? It's nothing in between over here. You want to have a portion of the world to come, you don't have to convert. Very good. Right? Who says anyone has to convert? No one has to convert. But if you want to convert, okay. So what do I have over here? Really mixed up person. That's what I have. No question. No question. But at the end of the day, I got to do what God says. Right? So if God tells me I have to do this, or I have to do that, or I have to do the other thing, that's my obligation. Now, does everyone stay on the straight and narrow path? Some people veer off. Some people chill a little bit, when they get older. Some people less afraid of God. They just go through the motions. These are bad. These are terrible things. We got to live like someone pointed out. We got to live every day like it's a new day. Forget about what happened yesterday. Today is a new day. Today is a new opportunity to draw close to God. Today is a new opportunity to do what I'm supposed to do. Today is an opportunity, God forbid, to sin. Right? You can't rest on your laurels over here. It's all about potential. It's all about what potentially I can do or can't do. And then I'm going to be held accountable for whatever level that potential is. Someone asks, who or what are the beasts that were created? Animals. Right? Right? They are domesticated. There are bigger animals, smaller animals. Right? You had goats that were created and ox were created. Ox is definitely a bigger animal. Right? So you had different animals created on that day. Right? You had bigger animals, smaller animals. That's what it means. Also, someone here mentions separation of light and darkness. Rashi says there was strife, and Hashem didn't call that day, second day, good. Yeah. Right? But the Torah says in day 6 it was very good. Well, why does it say very good? Because everything was complete. Even though it says Yom Hashishi, why does it say Hashishi? The 6th day, wasn't just say 6th day in general. Because 6th day over here means that, the 6th day, that God was waiting for someone to come and accept the Torah. God saw the future Jews are going to accept the Torah on the 6th day. 6th day meaning 6th of Sivan. Whole difference of opinion was 6th of Sivan, 7th of Sivan, but that's the day God gave the Torah. Right? So everything was sort of in flux. Right? Everything's like in suspended animation that God created, and then it got solidified by the end of the 6th day. That's why I call it very good, because everything God created was complete. Here's someone bring something up. Very good point. I want to hit it for a second. And that is, or whatever, probably conclude with this. And that is that people say they believe in Hashem, but they hate religion or labels. Yeah. Plenty of people hate labels. I also hate labels. But, like Rav Gifter said, I'm not an Orthodox Jew. Rav Gifter said, I'm a halachic Jew, right? I keep Jewish law. Right? So they don't want to be told. They don't want to be told what to do. Steeped in Kabbalah according to their own understanding. All right, let's analyze 1 second. I was interviewed in a local paper when I was going to rabbinical school, and one of the statements that I said, which they actually quoted, was, a lot of people say believe in God. I think it's a bunch of garbage, right? And that's I still stand by it, because people say they believe in God, but what do they give God lip service. They don't really believe in him. Or what level do they believe in him? So to speak. So they say it, then something goes wrong. No, I don't believe, or whatever. So they'll say, religion is the opiate of the masses. Yeah. Right. I get this all the time. People say it's man-made and this and that. And, why listen to rabbis? I don't listen to God and blah, blah, blah. Right. It's the same thing comes up over and over and over again. Right. They don't want to be called this. They don't want to be called that. Well, what do people want to do? Like this person, what do they want to do? They want to do, they want to learn Kabbalah when they don't know the alphabet, which I think is the funniest thing. Right. I mean, sad also, but imagine someone studied higher mathematics. Right? They studied higher mathematics. They studied calculus. Can you study calculus about trigonometry, right, or algebra? No. Can you run before you learn to walk and crawl? No. So why are you studying Kabbalah? Even it doesn't matter how watered down it is. Listen, Esther, Madonna, whatever she calls herself, she also learns Kabbalah. Come on. You think she's really learning Kabbalah? She can't even read the alphabet. Guarantee. Put all the money I don't have on that one. Right? She can put two words together and tell me what it means. I'd be shocked. Any of these people, they're really learning Kabbalah? Not learning Kabbalah. Yeah. Maybe some Kabbalist ideas, maybe totally watered down if they got it right. Let's say. But it's not the first thing non-Jews should be learning. Right? They should have a merit. If they learn enough, they should also learn that. Right? They convert or whatever. Right, but you're talking about something so esoteric where you need a heck of a lot of knowledge. I mean, a lot of knowledge before you start learning this. It would be like, it doesn't matter where a person came from. You're learning, I shouldn't say where you came from. Someone comes from, Western world, right? Western society. Yeah, they start to learn Chinese. They're going to start giving classes in Chinese? No. It's going to take them a long time to learn Chinese. It's not such an easy language to learn. Or Russian. You imagine after a couple of weeks, they decide this is what they're going to, this is going to learn. All of a sudden, they're delving into it like, the deep recesses of what all the words mean and this and that. Do me a favor. They don't even know the language. They don't know the language. If they don't know the language, what are they talking about? Nothing. Right, and I see it all the time. I don't even bother commenting because it's just a waste of time. People say, no, I got this, no, blah, blah, blah. Have you gone, as a non-Jew, have you gone through a tractate of Talmud from cover to cover? Yes or no? No. And you can't even learn it by yourself. You have to learn it, someone has to teach you. Yeah. So you haven't even learned the basics. You barely even know Chumash. You barely even know what the Torah says. You want to tell me you're learning Kabbalah? Big joke. Very, very big joke over here. So yeah. People want to do what they want to do. They want to say what they want to say. They want to do what they want to do. People like that, I would tell you, it's a waste of time to talk to. They have an agenda. They're not going to be interested in listening, right? They're going to say, wow, it's so deep and it's so this. And, I've had people tell me, it is very nice, very interesting. So I'll give one example. When I was in South America, I gave a class before Passover. A lot of these people, they were Jews. A lot of these people had become interested in Judaism. There was a Kabbalah center there. So I didn't even have all my books. None of my books had come yet, come later. Came like a month and a half later. But, so I gave a class at someone's house and they had a meal there, whatever. So, I started in Spanish. I went to Hebrew because I spoke Hebrew. So I went to Hebrew. I went to English. I went back to Spanish. Whatever. I spoke for like a couple hours, right? Took a break and this and that. So I spoke for a couple of hours. At the end, when I spoke, and I gave over some deep concepts, without going into Kabbalah. So when I spoke, at the end, I said, I just want you to know, I wanted to show you how deep the Torah was without even speaking about anything about Kabbalah. Wow, this, that, to change everybody's mind, I don't know. I don't know if it changed anybody's mind or not. But that's how people got interested in Judaism. Okay, there is what to be said for that. But how much can you really fathom and understand if you don't really know what Torah is? And you've never really learned, and you've never delved into it. You've never learned a tractate or half a tractate or anything in your life. And all of a sudden you're learning the esoteric things about putting letters together and this and that, and what the tree of knowledge was and what it represented and 10 spiritual worlds. I can take one word you say seriously at all. And not because I have a big ego, which I do, but it's not because of that. It's because you don't know anything about what you're talking about. Because you never learned. You've never learned. And if you never learned, I'm gonna, would I take seriously what you say about physics because you read an article on Wikipedia? I don't think so. That's not because of ego. That's because I think you're stupid. You wrote one article and say, no, Stephen Hawking, I'm going to knock off because I read this one article on Wikipedia. Knock him out. What do you know about it? What do you know about physics? You tell me you studied physics for years. Is that right? I'll tell you one last story. Talked to Gerald Schroeder. Should be well. He wrote a book. He wrote a book, Genesis, the Big Bang. Right? Trying to, put the 6 days of creation in line with science. And he was a physicist, right? Top physicist. And not everyone necessarily agrees, right, with what he says, but he's got a tremendous amount of knowledge in physics, right? So I went with him. He spoke in Tel Aviv University once. I took him there. And, he gives this lecture a lot. He speaks for Asia Torah as well, right? Goes around the world. And he wrote this book again, Genesis, the Big Bang. And basically he told me, he said, once I start speaking about physics, which, he really does at the beginning, they compare it to Torah. He says, once I start speaking about physics, within 5 minutes, I lose everybody. He's like, lose everybody. He says, they're not holding it. I mean, it's like, went to MIT, right, in Boston. Anyone knows, it's a famous school of Massachusetts Institute of Technology, right? You got to be a big brain to go there, right? An unbelievable big brain here when it comes to science. Yeah, you'll take my word for it. You can look him up. Any case, he told me straight, forget about Torah. Not even talking about Torah. People arguing about the age of the universe and like all kinds of things. He started out with physics and how physics works, right? He put in the age of the universe and mutations and this and that. One of the things he said was, you want to tell me about evolution and this and that. Let's analyze a monkey. Right? A monkey, what's the difference in DNA between a monkey and a human? 1%. 99% the same. Right? 99% the same. Right? The thing is you cannot change, even if you had a mutation every second for that 5 billion years on that day, however long it was, you'd never turn a monkey into a human. You're never going to turn a monkey into a human. But he told me, he said these people know very little about physics. Right? And that was his whole point. That was the whole point. Forget getting into Torah. Torah's another issue. He pulled everything together. You want to say you learned a little bit of physics, now you're an expert? He said in 5 minutes. He wasn't saying how great he was. He just said basic physics people don't know. They don't know. If he upped the ante a little bit, he lose them in 3 seconds. So you want to tell me they understand enough physics to tell me about the age of the universe? You tell me you got a professor who understands physics. You want to argue, brain to brain, physics to physics, one thing. You want to tell me you got other people who barely know anything about physics, and they're going to start, shooting off their mouth about things they don't know. I see it all the time. Little bit of knowledge, I always say, is dangerous because, what people do is they throw things out there and they don't know anything about, at all. Somebody mentions as well that facts of earlier times typically been disproven by future general science. Okay, things are changing, but things don't change so significantly that, wow, this is such a new discovery, we never thought of it. In medicine, things change radically, like so radically. Okay, a little bit here and there. I'm not going to say never change, right? Not going to go that far. I'm not going to say never change, right? But not that it makes a whole revolution, right? If you want to tell me all of a sudden they discovered, Copernicus's idea that not the sun goes around the earth goes around the sun, that's a game changer. That's a huge game changer. Why? Because everyone believed the opposite. Everybody believed the opposite before that. That's a game changer. That for sure is a game changer. You want to tell me things evolve here and there and change a little bit? Okay, right? Science hasn't uncovered many things, many things. They've only really scratched the surface, right? But they haven't, it's not foolproof by any stretch. Can things change over time? Yeah, here and there. But are things going to so radically change? I don't see it. I mean, I'm not a big science whiz, but I don't see these things changing overnight. It's going to really, change the whole spectrum how we look at things, in different ways. I don't think it's going to change like that, right? Medicine hasn't changed that way in many ways. I mean, some things have. I'm not going to say everything. Some things have definitely changed the way they look at things. True, but in general, the way we look at things, I don't think it's so, I don't think it's so radically different, right? But that's not even the point, right? The point is that people throw things out, ideas and different things. They don't have any idea. They never did the research. They never looked into things. They think what they want because, they have an agenda. Well, I can't believe that. And I don't really, did you ever learn about it? And like the person who thinks, that, they're an atheist, like, and they're convinced they're an atheist, right? Do you ever study philosophy? Socrates, Aristotle? No. Do you ever study later philosophy? Kant, Kierkegaard? No. Do you ever study Jewish philosophy? The Rambam, Yehuda Levi? No. Did you read the Bible from cover to cover? No, I saw the movie. So what do you mean you're an atheist? You're an idiot. That's the bottom line. You never studied, never learned, but you got this very strong opinion about something you don't know anything about. One of my personal pet peeves, most people know. It bothers me to no end. You sit there and spew and spew and spew about nothing. About nothing. You don't have any idea. You're talking out of your elbow. I'm being generous. You're talking out of your elbow about something you don't know. What are you going to tell me? Webster's 8th definition? Come on. Oh, I think this is what it means. Really? Okay, you have any support for that? I had someone say, no, it's in my heart. I don't care what's in your heart. Do you have any support for it? No, it's what I think, based on years of study, sure. I'm sure you've been, hours, you're pounding, you're pounding the books, day in and day out, looking up things and this and that, trying to get your answers. I don't think so. Right? I don't know anybody like that. They got an idea, they back it up with one or two stupid things, and that's it. That's what they do. That's not real knowledge. You write a term paper, you prove it. Show me beyond the shadow of a doubt this is true. Show me. Like someone said about intermarriage, I said, oh, what do you think? Torah says, a dozen times, don't intermarry. You think it was only for that generation? Maybe it was only for the generation that went into the land, and it was only on the 7 nations. I go, I'm open to all ears. Right? All my ears are open. Let's go. Let's see. Like, why do you think there's such a strong prohibition? I don't have to get, you're a fanatic. No, that wasn't my question. I am a fanatic, but that wasn't the question. The question is, show me evidence. Obviously this person was intermarried. So they had their own bias. I said, you have what to prove or not? They're like, yeah, I'm not talking to you. You're a fanatic. Yeah, because I boxed them in a corner. I'm not saying it's a good thing to do, but I boxed them in a corner. I said, okay, show me. I'm not a world-class expert in Tanakh and other places. I said, I'd like to hear evidence. I'd like to hear evidence that it's okay. Even if it's man-made, why'd they say it? I said, I'm open to suggestions. Right? I'm very open to suggestions. They weren't biting. Because they know I'm right. They know they don't have an answer. They just want to do what they want to do. So too bad. The Torah's not about what I want to do. Knock out the reform movement, knock out the conservative movement. It's not about what I want to do. It's all what's convenient. There are a lot of Jews out there for convenience sake. If it's not convenient, I'm not going to do it. But it's not even about convenience today. They want to do what they want to do, right? And that's true. So in this case, I would say the exact same thing. Exact same thing. They want to learn Kabbalah, they want to do this, and they don't know what they're talking about. So what? That's what I want to do. You can't tell me otherwise. Of course I can tell you otherwise. You just don't want to hear it. Because you don't want to get knocked down. You want to think what you're doing is okay. Yeah. I heard people say, on Shabbos, so I'm just on this rant a little bit, on Shabbos, last Shabbos, I got texts from people, Jews, because of what was going on here, right? Understand, so someone writes, sometimes when you text us, I know it's Shabbos. So you can tell me right now on the computer, it might be a rabbinic prohibition at best, it's not really writing, right? And you can erase it and, and all that, so it's not really writing. That'd be a Torah prohibition. It's probably at best a rabbinic prohibition, right? We could probably find ways around that even in different ways. But, they mean well. Not going to say they don't mean well, right? But, someone says, well, I know it's Shabbos, but, or someone texted me, well, I wasn't going to, I wasn't going to write you on Shabbos to see what was going on. I said, it wouldn't have mattered. I would have answered you. I said, even when Shabbos over, I would have answered you. Right? Okay. So they had a certain level of respect. Okay. But I understand. So does that trump everything? I remember once I took my phone off the, on Shabbos. What would happen if we had to get a hold of you? I said, you get me after Shabbos. And what if it was an emergency? And could I have done anything? Potentially? No. So it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Right? Unless it's like saving a life. It'd be saving a life. What would happen if something happened and we died? Okay, it's terrible, but what can I do? What can I do? It's Shabbos, the festival. I can't go anywhere. Can I go on a plane? Can someone drive me? I mean, maybe the technical issues, maybe somewhat to get around, but it's Shabbos. It's a festival. It's not, it's not Play-Doh. It's not silly putty, right? It's not I can do whatever I want when I want. That's not what Torah is. They think that's fanaticism. We just wanted to make sure you're okay. Okay, I understand that. Yeah, Shabbos comes first. I know people were up in arms. I had a question: should I send an email? Shouldn't I send an email? For them, it's forbidden. It's the end of the festival for them. They tell me it's rabbinic and this, to make them not worry. Maybe there are ways around it. Could have been. I wasn't willing to do it. Yeah, was I wrong? Maybe. I didn't ask the question, but I didn't do it. So we'll find out a day later. When it was not a festival there, I sent them an email straight away. Send a text straight away. I didn't even put it on my status for that reason. Because I didn't want people commenting. I knew people would comment. So I'm putting a stumbling block in front of them. Maybe they would have done it anyway. Yeah, maybe. Right? So yeah, people mean well. Well, think about what they're saying. I know it's Shabbos, and I know I shouldn't be doing this, but so don't do it. You're not doing me any favors. I understand the concern. Right? I definitely understand the concern, but God comes first. Shabbos comes first. People don't want to hear that. People want to say you got to acknowledge. I don't have to acknowledge anything. God always comes first. It's what he wants me to do. Well, am I going to come out smelling like a rose? No, not necessarily. Right? Not necessarily, but okay, you got to do what you got to do. Right? 100%, you got to do what you got to do. Someone asked, do I write books? No. Don't have time, but it's on my agenda one day. Problem with books is they don't sell. So even to write it doesn't, you're not going to get your money back from it anyway. Right? But you need something like really specific to, get out there. I have thought about what I'm doing in my spiritual coaching and different things I've gone through over the years. Getting ideas and chofs bubbles out there. Maybe. Not out of the realm of possibility. Why is the Torah called the Bible? It's right to call it the Torah like that. No, it's called Torah. Right? Bible, I think it's the Greek word, right? I thought it was a Latin word. Okay, it's a Greek word, right? From the word ta biblia, means the books, i.e., means the Bible, right? That's what it means. That's what it means literally. Yeah, probably shouldn't call it the Bible, right? Probably better to call it Torah, right? That's what I would. That's what I would say. Yeah. Any other? That's what the Christians call it. Let's say, right? So better call it Torah. Is it a real transgression to call it Bible? I don't know. I don't think so. I wouldn't say it's a real prohibition, but better to call it Torah. Yeah. Any other questions? Shem's and Shad. Someone says Chabad.org calls Torah like that. Yeah, but they're also catering to non-Jews as well. Right. So it could be. It's not a problem. Right. I don't think it's a major issue. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop here. I do this every Sunday, 9:00 Eastern time, 4:00 Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, or orthodoxconversion.com, or you can send me, or Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism on YouTube. There, I got videos on the Torah portion of the week, Q&As, ethics of our fathers, also Book of Leviticus, also controversial issues. Send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com, whichever good. Beginning of the day, middle of the day, or end of the day.